Hello and welcome to Awakened with Lea, the next chapter. I'm your host, Lea, and this show is about bringing to the forefront diverse guests who have experienced adversity and major or minor transitions in life so that we can provide our viewers with courage, confidence, and tangible tools to navigate any challenge in life with the lived experience and wisdom of our guests. I'm so excited to welcome today Nicky Correa to the show. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. So, Nikki, you are the CEO of Corr Wealth Management, which is a firm that focuses on helping women transition through their divorce.
That's right.
Ooh, very much needed.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. So, Nikki, I want to thank you for being here and for your courage to openly speak about your experiences with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, can you share with us some of your earlier experiences that shaped who you are today?
So I actually, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit from the time I was little. I was always that very spirited kid. I was always independent. And it was a weird thing that kind of got me to kind of help women in this way. My mom and my dad, they didn't exactly have the best marriage. And growing up, I grew up in a really Catholic home. And I would see my friends and I would see their parents and the way that they interacted, and my parents just didn't connect on the same level. They didn't have the foundations of friendship that I kind of saw around me in different other relationships. And after 33 years of marriage, my mom on a random Tuesday decided to leave my dad, and she showed up at my doorstep with her car full of her things. And I, I realized that it's not that I realized that vows are just meaningless. I didn't really take it like that. I just realized that, anything in life is kind of like a muscle. And if you don't work at it, and if you don't sort of do your part, and it can break, or it can slow down, or it can sag, and it's not the same that you thought it would be because you've sort of taken it for granted. And so when my mom showed up at my door, it was weird because she didn't even know if she was going to stay the day. And one day turned into 2 days, turned into the summer, and it was in June. And then I saw her day by day. She got happier and happier and happier. And my parents had this really, I would say it's not a weird relationship, but culturally, like I'm from India, just, males are just more dominant, and females just, often take a more submissive role. And it's sad because I feel like the strongest females I know are Indian women. But it's a cultural thing that I think like now is starting to kind of go away. But my mom sort of put her complete trust in my father when they first met. But she did it in a way where she forgot herself. And I think that that's what the issue really was. And along that way, in forgetting herself, she started to lose herself more and more and more in that relationship. And that's really common, I find, where two people get together, they're not necessarily bad people, but I don't believe that two halves really make a whole. And so when she left and when she came over, she didn't really know where to start or what to do, or she didn't even, like I said, she didn't even know if she was going to stay or not. And so I sort of went into fix it mode, and I we went and we interviewed different attorneys, and I helped her with the financials. And I was working for another wealth management firm at that time, and so I sort of kind of took over. And I realized that I loved it. I loved helping her in the way that I was helping her, and taking this over in this way gave her a sense of peace and a sense of relief, because this wasn't really her strength. And she was able to kind of focus on discovering herself and figuring out her emotions, while her finances and all that legal stuff was really taken care of. And, for the past 10 years, I've worked, with businesses, and I've been in the B2B industry. Yeah.
So I just want to circle back to what you mentioned about recognizing from an early age that your parents' marriage was not what you were experiencing your friend's parents' marriage to be. And what impact did that have on growing up?
My home wasn't exactly the happiest home. And it was really because two people that weren't supposed to be together came together, and they tried to live this life together. And they didn't have any foundation of friendship. So I think that their relationship was really based more on obligation. Like, it was just the right time to get married. And my dad was very career oriented. He was very good on paper. So was my mom. And I just don't like, their families were really good families. So I feel like from a resume perspective, it just sort of made sense. But from a personality perspective, it didn't, because my mom just wasn't ready. She hadn't figured out who she was at that time.
And what impact did that have on your life?
I grew up sort of uh trying to it was a weird situation, because my dad was very dominant as a personality, and my mom was very much of a pleaser. And for the longest time, my mom trained me to really please my father. And my father trained me to try to be a little more, not dominant, but stand on my own 2 feet, but not so much that I would take him over, kind of thing. So, I always had to kind of remember my place. And I always felt like, I was getting pulled in two different directions. There was two sets of expectations of me growing up, and I grew up as an only child. And financially, we were fine. I didn't grow up poor. I had everything that I needed. But from an emotional level and mental level, our home just wasn't stable.
I can imagine how confusing that must have been for you.
It was a really toxic space, because you just had two people that didn't get along, right? And it was crazy, because my dad would go away on trips. Like, he would go away to work, and he was an international consultant. So he would go away to work, and my mom and I would have the best time. And we were more like sisters, and had more of a relationship, like a sisterhood relationship, than we did mom and daughter. And I think it's just because she was also trying to find herself during that time. And she got married way too early. She was trying to figure herself out in this marriage. And then she had a kid, and she was trying to figure out herself with this kid. And so I think it was just, she was constantly put in a situation that was sort of derailing self time, mental time, time that she needed to just collect herself, right?
At that age, you're probably trying to figure out what belief to go with. So you're being taught these different beliefs. What steps did you take in order to find your own belief system? What worked for you? What was aligned with you?
wanted to offer value to this world. And I always felt like no matter what I went through in my personal life, I never wanted somebody else to go through that. I never wanted to see another woman feel trapped like my mom did. And I remember when, my mom and I used to have tea together. And when I was a teenager and I would come home from school and she was there and we would have our tea and we would talk about this life that was just free of my father. And I remember as a kid, I had a little bag at the bottom of my closet. And I really thought, all my life that she was going to leave him. And it never happened. It never happened, and the days went by and it never happened. And it was because she was scared. He I don't think she had the freedom in her marriage to be able to do what she wanted to do either. I mean, she always, if we went out together, she always had to ask him. And, it's like that traditional sort of marriage, right? Even when, growing up, even when I wanted to take my mom out for Mother's Day, I always had to ask him, is it okay if I take mom out to lunch? And, so it's like, I feel like we didn't really have a way to be ourselves in that home. So that was really interesting, so I didn't want anybody to go through that. But I hadn't really found my niche on how I'm supposed to help women and how I'm supposed to kind of translate that into a business.
On a personal level, it sounds like it impacted you in, leading yourself in the direction of independence.
Right.
And then what followed through was nobody else should experience that.
Right, totally.
So although you didn't know, what your niche was or how that was going to play out in business, it's like it was within you already based on the experiences that you had growing up.
I was always like a fixer kid. Like I was always like, if someone ever, my friends or even my mom, they said, this is my problem, I would be that one to try to find a solution to that problem. And sometimes it was really unhealthy, to be very honest with you, because, you get into this cycle of you're always trying to fix it, always trying to fix it. So, but in general, that was really a huge part of my nature. And I felt like, when I entered my working career, I would help businesses fix problems that, were part of, their dynamic, whatever that dynamic was. And when I got into the financial sector, I really saw value because, I feel like you have like three legs of life, right? You have your relationships, you have your finances, and then you have your health. And if one of those legs of life is shaky or it's broken, it takes at least one of the others down with it, if not all, right? So being in one of those three sectors, helping people grow in one of these three sectors was huge for me. Right. So when I entered the financial world, just doing little things like helping people manage their cash flow, teaching business owners about tax, just helping women get that encouragement to be able to say like, yeah, you can actually do it. You don't need to depend on a man, right? And all you need to know is a process, and I can help you with the process.
And you're so right on point with when one area of your life is, not exactly aligned with what you'd like it to be, it affects other areas of your life.
Yes. And I feel like it's my job really to figure out the why, for a lot of people, right? Like, why is this happening? It's taking their situation and just figuring out like the root cause and finding out a pathway and a process during the time that they're really the most vulnerable in their life, right? Where they're the most confused, where they're the most not themselves, right? And it's trying to really take them back on track to wherever their pathway is and wherever their goal is, right?
So now being an entrepreneur, what did you learn from working for someone else with these beliefs that you had, that you knew deep down that you wanted to help other women, you know, create the life that they want for themselves? What did you learn about that helped you move forward into entrepreneurship?
Well, actually, in my career, I actually learned that it's more convenient and it's more easy picking rich people and helping rich people with very little problems get to wherever they want to go. Like, nobody really wants to deal with a situation that's messy. And that's resulted in people feeling very embarrassed about their messy situation and not feeling like they can be truly open and honest when they're coming to ask for help. And I, as a person, like I am very solution focused. I am really results focused. And I really wanted to get in the dirt and roll up my sleeves and be able to say, like, without judgment, without looking at somebody and saying, I didn't care really, I always tell my clients, like, I don't care what you did, because I firsthand know that when two awesome people are together, even if they're like saints, if they're put in a room with someone that isn't good for them, that environment really shapes who they are. And it turns them into something that they're not. So for me, I really didn't care about what they did. I just cared about where they were going and how they were going to get there, because the how is really my job.
Absolutely, forward focused.
Yes.
And,
Yeah. Forward focus.
yeah, and offering this non-judgmental, safe space for women who are scared to begin with is so crucial in being able to take those first steps forward.
And I found that, I had this office, and I found that women never ever stepped into my office. Like, it was a really nice office, but nobody ever wanted to come. They wanted to come to my house. They wanted to sit on my dining room table. They wanted to have cappuccinos and just talk about what was going on with them. And because that was a safe space for them to be. Some of them, they had husbands that were sort of tracking their cell phone, and monitoring where they were going. And, so it was easier for them to say, hey, I'm going off to a girlfriend's house. And they would pop by my house and try to figure out where their future was going to lead them, and it was nice being able to say to women who are thinking about leaving, hey, if you leave, this is what your future is going to look like. This is exactly what you need to do. And then for women who had decided, that they had left, it's being able to say, hey, what are you doing right now? And how can I make your process really, really seamless and really efficient? And then for women that have sort of been there and done that, and, it's like the milk is already spilt kind of thing, it's being able to say, okay, how can we rebuild? Right? And how can we focus on the fact that your goals are not now an afterthought, and how they are absolutely achievable? And yes, bad things have happened. And yes, you have regrets, but that's okay, because there's so much life left to live.
You are giving these women hope that it can be a different way.
It's not just hope, really. It's a concrete pathway, right? It's being able to say, okay, this is your goal and this is how you're going to achieve it, right? So it's not really blind encouragement. It's like, okay, so this is what your cash flow is going to be, and these are how we're going to build your assets. And this is, oh, you want to move to a bigger space, you want to take care of your children in this way. Oh, you've always wanted to go to therapy because you felt like it's going to give you a leg up. This is how we budget for it. So, also, like, for me, I work with a team. So, I have mental health professionals that work with my clients. I have lawyers that work with my clients. Obviously, my clients can choose whoever they want to choose. And say, for example, if they have a favorite lawyer, I will work with their lawyer. But I work in a way where I'm all connected. So my hands are kind of like an octopus in different things. And I'm always I'm always trying to understand what they're going through with a different professional, because it still comes back and it relates to this thing, right? Which is who they are and where they're going and what they're doing.
It sounds like it's not only actionable strategies that you provide them, but you also provide this space where they're being heard, like what their needs are, and you make a personalized plan based on what their needs are, and you have this team that, all of those strategies can be implemented. And I think sometimes just feeling heard and knowing that, oh, okay, yeah, this is what I need. And she's got the go-to person for that. I mean, that in itself, it creates a space of trust. And where at this stage, probably a lot of the women that are coming to you don't quite have the trust factor going on yet. And they have a lot of fear. So the fear is keeping them in their comfort zone. So, that space that you're providing is super important.
A lot of women, in this situation, they want to stay in their comfort zone. Unfortunately, most comfort zones in these situations are extremely self-sabotaging, right? They're really self-sabotaging spaces that women want to stay inside. And it's because, the thing that they never thought would happen just happened.
I like what you said about fear. It's definitely, it's a shield. It's to protect ourselves. And can you give some examples of how you were able to break through some of the fear in order to take action?
I don't have any specific examples, but just being able to say, come over to my house and let's talk. It's being able to say, I know you're going through a hard time and it seems like you want to speak to somebody. I know somebody that can really, really help you, and being able to introduce that person to a mental health professional. It's really being able to acknowledge what they're going through. So when they say that, when someone comes to you and they're so angry because of everything that's happened, it's being able to really turn around and acknowledge that anger.
You are able to reframe the challenge and help them see opportunity.
If you have say a little lost puppy, and just being able to say, come on, here you go. Here's, we're walking on the sidewalk. Here you go. And then when they stray off, it's like, no, here you go. Here you go. Without, like I said, without judgment, and being able to remember at all times that people are human, and that humanity comes with a lot of flaws, right? And you can't expect somebody to be at their best when they're vulnerable. And it's really being able to remember that at all times.
What you just said about, being vulnerable, it's, you being the professional helping them, recognizing that when they're vulnerable, they may not be able to see opportunities, possibilities the way you can, and you're able to provide that to them, which again, it definitely priceless. And I also like what you said about you don't expect them to forget about, what has occurred or what is occurring, but you're helping them lean into accepting what is happening, which is quite healing. And when we do that, we're getting rid of all of what happened and all the stories we're telling ourselves, and able to move forward And
Yes.
we take our power back that way. We step into our power when we get rid of all those stories, and we gain ultimate control. And you're giving them the opportunity to actually see that and what acceptance means.
I actually teach a course. It's called the Naked Divorce, and it's really about if somebody is going through a divorce, or they're in the process, or if they're thinking about it, or their post kind of situation. It's being able to really understand what the process does to you. What are the things you need to do? What do different things mean?
I think it's really important to be able to provide the whole package the way you explained it, in order to, you know, to really make an impact on people's lives. And it sounds like you've really impacted your mom's life, and from everything that you've experienced, learned, and grew from.
I feel like my mom really gave me um, the purpose that, her situation really gave me the purpose I needed to do what I needed to do. So I feel like, when she came to live with me, there was a lot of guilt. There's still a ton of guilt. I mean, she's much better than she was before, but I mean, she's working through in therapy a lot of the emotions that she's feeling. And she constantly felt like an imposter in my home. And it didn't matter how comfortable my husband and I made her. It didn't matter that, we went out of our way to buy her favorite groceries from her favorite grocery store, and redecorate her room to make sure that she was comfortable, or what have you. It didn't matter, but there was something inside of her that was, she had this void that she needed to heal on her own time, right? But I always try to remind her that, she gave me this beautiful gift and this beautiful tool to be able to help women just like her. And there's a lot of women out there just like her who are confused and lost, and it's okay to be confused and lost. Again,
And,
we just the process.
and it's a great example of that. It that confidence, that comfort, that connectedness comes from within. It doesn't matter from any external sources. It comes from within, and then you grow from there.
It at first, you want to be able to help this person, right? Like with my mom, I wanted to be able to fix it, fix it, fix it. But you can help people to a certain extent, and I realized that in my journey in this whole process, right? And you have to be able to be in a position where you're giving them the tools so that they are making the choice that they need to make for themselves on their schedule, on their time. And that's so important. That's so important for her. And I, just as she was growing into herself, I was really growing with her, right? And learning so many things that really allow me to help women in the best way.
So, life is a journey of transitions, and our goal is to give our viewers hope, but also to provide a tangible takeaway for them. Um, can you share one tangible takeaway that led you to your next chapter?
Nothing lasts forever. And that's actually not a bad thing. Everything and every person has its time. And you may meet somebody and they may offer amazing value to you over a lunch. And then you might never ever see them again. And you might marry the love of your life. And then 2 years later, realize that he isn't for you forever. But you had the best 2 years of your life and the best memories and the best travels with him. And you may have been a certain way and changed, and that's all okay. It's okay to evolve. It's okay to change. And every time something ends, another something begins. So it's really important to be able to embrace that cycle and that movement, because every time you try to stop that movement and stop those cycles, you're actually going against nature, to me. And so it's very important to be able to move with those cycles. And when you move with those cycles, you grow. You allow people around you to grow, because, say, for example, you might have a friend that was, from high school, and they're not the same person, and neither are you. And that's fine. And I find that sometimes people put obligation on relationships and expectation. And the whole idea is you give what you can to whatever you can give to, or whoever you can give to in that moment. And you give it very, very holistically.
I not only heard that takeaway, but I felt that takeaway. It is so powerful and so important. Thank you very much. Really, really good advice. That's all the time that we do have for today, but I want to thank you for being here and for sharing your experiences and all your knowledge, your wisdom. So very much appreciated.
It was a pleasure to be on the show. And for all of you that are watching, if you get a chance, check out www.corwealth.ca.
Thank you. And thank you to all our viewers. We look forward to sharing this space with you next time.